Happy showtime. Okay, so we got into our showtime imbalance, and thus far, we have made a subtle reaction to it. I will lead by saying that if, the bulls get too comfortable, I think that could be a real big mistake here. I'll explain why as we get beyond just the indices. There's more specific individual names that I think could cause problems and throw a bit of a wrench into things. So we'll go over to the daily, and from the daily perspective, again, we got into that showtime daily imbalance, and thus far we are rejecting pretty sharply off of that level. Now in the process, you do have a bullish breaker below, and you also do have a bullish daily imbalance. Okay, so these are the two real points of interest. Now if this retracement that we're currently undergoing right now were to gravitate down towards into that daily fair value gap, this would then be essentially our next pivot. If we were to slip up on this, I think we have real problems, like relative equal low problems here, and who knows, maybe even down into the quarterly imbalance at 23.9. That's how serious I am about this. So I'm trying to methodically work my way through this because I don't think this is so cut and dry. But I will say I'm really not as optimistic as one would think after getting into this showtime imbalance just yet. And I'll explain to you why here in a sec. Now, looking at this from a 4-hour perspective, we have already gotten into and have filled these 4-hour levels, right? The shift in structure from a 4-hour perspective would occur from the Tuesday bounce out of this bullish breaker, which is at 25,917. I do think ultimately price will gravitate there, probably sooner than later. And then from that point, the only thing is here, we don't necessarily form an imbalance to the downside with that low wick that we had to close out the day with the earnings and everything. So you're going to prevent a 4-hour imbalance from forming unless you really get crazy inside of this next hour and a half, which I'm not so sure that happens. Maybe later on in the overnight session. But then you're going to have that bullish breaker. Then you have that 4-hour bullish imbalance, which would be in alignment with that daily breaker and bullish imbalance. So this is really the spot for me moving forward here. But I do think that we will gravitate down towards that low. And specifically, or why I would feel that way in the first place, and I'm hoping that the specific price points come up from the overnight session here, and I'm not sure off the top. Let's see, Tesla right now it has us at 431. I'm not sure if this is incorporating what with the earnings move or not. That's what I'm really concerned with here, because I thought Tesla was moving much higher. So, and the reason why I'm even bringing this up in the first place, and let's just see, maybe if I go down into smaller time frames it'll show. Not sure. Yeah, it has all the oh, here it is. Hold on, let me turn this on. Whoops, I have the regular trading hours on. This should give us okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for here. Okay, so even with this move here up to 450, just note on Tesla that you have a bearish weekly imbalance that's relatively close, right at 457.55. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet, even with a pretty nice move in that after hours session, right? Right now I know we're sitting at 439, rejecting out of the new week open gap. But even if we were to gravitate higher, again, I don't necessarily think we're out of the woods here. Another one would be Meta, where another one that had a huge run. Okay, so Meta ultimately reached for 742. Come on over here to the weekly. What does that put you in alignment with here on Meta? 742 puts you well above this buy side target, okay, and even gets you into this weekly bearish volume imbalance. Okay, we didn't get above it, right? Note that little sus. Okay, so we got in here, and ultimately we rejected from that point thus far, 713. So we're back in this vicinity here with relative equal lows below. Okay, now come on over to Microsoft. That was the third, right? And I think Microsoft was down quite a bit. It was. So this move on Microsoft down through these lows, again, this is leaving behind relative equal lows down to that 438. Look where that 438 is in alignment with. Here, right? Another bullish imbalance here, and this bullish imbalance will as well be in alignment with just a deeper sweeper into your monthly bullish breaker and monthly discounted bullish imbalance. So I do not necessarily think we're out of the woods. There's still a lot more to come as we head into the rest of this week. But, my takeaway is initial reaction to this Showtime imbalance. Yes, we got into it. Yes, we filled it. We're pretty sharp here in the after hours. And a lot of the movement that we got to push us to the highs of this Showtime imbalance, we just ran into higher time frame levels on a lot of those names. So skeptical. I'm skeptical from a bullish perspective. I think the daily imbalance will be our new pivot. This is ultimately where I think price will draw towards. And from this point, this will really be able to kind of dictate a little bit on how we proceed moving forward here. SPY has one as well. Dow actually doesn't really have too much of anything holding it up from this point after the rejection out of this daily volume imbalance here. And if I'm not mistaken, Russell very similarly as well here. I don't know if Russell got into this. Let's see what's the high on that. 26,975. I think that's 26,979. Yep. So we did not quite get into the daily fair value gap there. We missed it by 0.4. So there are relative equal highs there. But where's the next daily imbalance on Russell? It's not till here. So but that's just my takeaway from where we're at currently with how we had the FOMC and 3 out of the Mag 7 earnings kind of shake out. So does anybody have any questions about anything we just talked about there, or anything they would like to add? Maybe anybody have a differing viewpoint than me on this?
I don't know if you have, but look at how we look on the daily time frame. It's
Yeah, I have it up.
shockingly different. I came in a little bit late, but it's shockingly different. No, like the actual daily, not the 24-hour.
Let's see.
It looks really bad, to be fair, because the close it at 4:15.
Okay. So if I'm gonna look daily without the extension on, I'll just no, I can't even turn it off from a 1 day perspective. Let me do
Like
24
we
hour
closed
and
under
then do
CE.
regular.
On the actual daily, we closed under CE.
Mine's a little different than yours. Um,
Huh.
I can't even go daily. Look, my daily is exactly the same.
Huh.
So maybe if I use the current contract, let's see.
I don't know, but today's candle is a wick, and we closed under CE on the daily time frame on my end. Granted, my trading view is retarded sometimes, and I don't know, I can't see the same thing you can a lot of the time, but that's
Yeah,
how
it's
I'm
weird.
using it.
I don't
I
have
don't
that,
know.
but I obviously we're on the same page. Yeah, I think it's clear as day that the draw right now is
Yeah,
that daily fair value gap a little lower. It is
yeah,
in
for
alignment with
sure.
the breaker, but again, this is showtime from a daily perspective. Like and with some relative equal lows below, I'm very skeptical, especially because all three of those names, minus Tesla. Tesla's close, but it didn't quite get into that weekly. You had Microsoft, which looks deeper sweeper on the higher time frame monthlies, right? Um, I'm pretty sure that's like 5 or 6% of Nasdaq and SPY as well. Maybe a little bit different percentage wise, um, but that's a big name. Meta rocketed. Look where Meta rocketed into. Meta literally took that rocket, swept liquidity, and then faded after the sweep, and took weekly liquidity in a weekly bearish fair value gap in premium of the range. That's not very comforting as a meta long, honestly. So, and I gotta avenge Surface. Surface is pissed he didn't take longs on that meta, but there's a chance that completely just flatlines and goes back to where it was, especially in this overnight. If this overnight can get a little nutty, which I don't know if I'm really expecting, to be honest. We had the AM session was pretty stagnant. The PM was actually a snoozer as well. It got a little exciting in the after hours, but we'll see if that leads into a little bit more of movement in this overnight session. I'm trying to pull up Meta really quick just to show you guys the same thing that I just went over, but where is it? That's Microsoft. Where's Meta? It's got to be up here somewhere. There it is. Okay. So Meta, with that extended hours on, now the hourly showed me something different. Hold on. Even still, hold on. Okay. So the highs that we have here from an hourly are 743. Where does that 743 gets you in here? Sorry. Okay, but puts you inside deep discount in that daily bearish fair value gap. This would be Meta's Showtime bearish fair value gap that it's in, and had rejected about $30 from those highs, and that's after filling in this imbalance here as well. So yeah, I'm just a little skeptical, that's all. And I don't really want to make it seem like, oh, Mando's so bearish right now. I don't want it to really seem that way, because I'm just trying to be realistic, that's all. So it might sound like a little bit more like firm and strong just because I haven't really been bearish for a really long time, rightfully so. But yeah, I'm. It's just not really sitting well with me. That's all. So that's kind of where I'm at. Let me see. I actually told Katie my CC interest rate. He actually got mad at me out of jealousy. Yeah, I don't know how they come up with that, to be honest. Um, Yes, I was on RTH. Yeah, thanks. I'm not exactly sure how this plays out, but if you look at Meta on the 24-hour, all the news did was shoot us up into deep discounts with relative equals lows below. Hard to be bearish if we create a bullish fair value gap, but just saying that was at 836, so that was probably mid when I was saying the exact same thing. So we're on the same page there for sure. Meta is definitely in a monthly sandwich, and the problem with this monthly sandwich is that I guess technically we are discounted, but there's relative equal lows below. That's my issue there. Similar to what you see maybe on Microsoft or Apple even. Apple's got earnings tomorrow too. But not me signing on right at, so that's what I have. Does anyone have any idea question? I'll have this up, don't worry. CE is an ICT term for consequential encroachment. It's just the midpoint of a fair value gap. And what you would look at there would be closures above would kind of show you some willingness to move higher through that fair value gap, whereas a close below the midpoint of that imbalance shows, I guess, what's the word? I hate to say resistance, but it's essentially resisting, powering through that imbalance in one shot. And if it's showing you resistance inside of that imbalance, the expectation would be that you would go find liquidity elsewhere, and that liquidity is likely lower. So the takeaway, kind of. Again, I don't really want to make it sound like I'm like uber bearish, because I really don't even know. I don't even know if it's going to last that long is my point. Really. To me, anything beyond this is probably too much. I think this would be fair. We might not even see this quarterly imbalance. I would prefer that, honestly. I would. And honestly, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say, yeah, we go here. But baby steps. This yearly is really the one that's throwing the wrench for me, because the yearly, I mean, the deeper you get into that, you're just leaving a little bit of a fair value gap on the yearly, which it's not the end of the world, but I would definitely really like a fair value gap to be left this year to the upside. I would want this really to be pretty short and then move higher at an accelerated clip throughout the rest of the year. But I don't want to be in a position where we do not form a fair value gap. I'll leave it at that, because that's just really scary. I think gold is warning us as well. All the metals. Now, gold a little bit different than some of the others. Like I know silver has a lot of use cases. I'm not exactly sure if gold is in the same boat, but I'm pretty sure silver is like actually important for a lot of this new technology, whether it be the semiconductors or um, these anything really AI related. I'm not sure if gold. I could be totally wrong. Gold could be super important. I'm not exactly sure. And a lot of the commodities, typically when you would get the commodities to run, it would be like, okay, this is like extreme fear for financial markets or even like currency for that matter. But the difference is like these metals are actually valuable beyond just like, oh, it's a brick of gold. Like he's loaded. He's got mad gold. It's like, again, gold, I don't necessarily know in comparison to some of the others. I think silver's has a little bit more use case in terms of the technology now, but but most of the commodities, right? You look at all of these precious metals, like a lot of them are really important in semiconductors themselves. Like, think of the periodic table. A lot of that shit is like, oh wow, okay, you need this. We need to go mine this. We need it for semiconductors, like lithium or cobalt and all that other shit. Gold is a great conductor too, but people don't use it a lot. Yeah, it is. And now it's totally expensive, right? So I mean, it's clearly like demand is there, and I don't think it's just for that purpose. I also think in confluence with that, the dollar is. I don't think the dollar's safe. Yeah, working med device, we use it. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, what a lot of the other metals too, right? But yeah, I don't think the dollar is safe. I've been on this for a little bit now, and I mean, I know the dollar had a relatively decent day, but it's down a little bit to start off. I'm sorry, relatively decent. You know, what would we consider it 4 hours ago? Like new day starts now. Okay, I get it, but um, but it did have a decent day yesterday. Um, but I am really not very optimistic for the dollar, and that's scary. Hyperinflation. I know stagflation's been thrown out there quite a bit. Um, yeah, I'm just really like it is kind of scary. And we talked about this today in the live trading session, but we talk about like, oh, markets at all-time highs, and then you compare it to like gold and what our money used to be based on, and it's like it really hasn't. You know what I mean? It's just like it's the chart exactly was what we looked at was this.
I mean, to
And like you see
be
in the
fair,
relation.
like markets have been ripping, and with like gold's been ripping for really long time now, and markets have ripped with it, have dumped with it, ripping like. But yeah, realistically speaking, we're like we have the illusion of wealth, but we're not actually getting wealthier because inflation is just keeping up with indices pretty much.
uh Basically, I mean, I guess the percentage might be a little skewed. I get what your point is. I mean, I don't know. You would get like some nerdy technical guy and be like, well, actually, with the 3% rate of increase in your returns on, the S&P 500 being blank, it's actually, whatever. But I understand where you're going
Uh,
with that, and I agree. It's just, the loser in all of this
is us.
is your dollar. Yeah, it's your dollar.
Yeah, it's people who
It's
hold
like,
dollars like us. Yeah.
so that is the problem. And I mean, honestly, look, I'm not an economist. I don't try to be an economist, but like to me, this is just, kind of just trying to use as much common sense as possible. Again, maybe an economist would say something differently than me, but from my take on this matter is, sure, you have assets going up, which is great. We are people who are inclined to be interested in the stock market, and hopefully we can capitalize on this and everything. But in the grand scheme of things, um, it's really not a good thing. Um, and it's been a topic of discussion for couple years now on like how this, cryptocurrency, or this, more of like a central bank digital currency, and like that to me is just really, really scary, and I'm not really here for that. But yeah, I mean, I think you probably you know wrote your death sentence when you came off gold, and it just became, let's just print money. Uh, you know, however we feel free to do so. I think that's a huge problem, but that's why it's just like, at some point this music stops, and that's really scary. You know, uh, that's at least the way that I look at it. I don't know. Maybe you guys look at it differently, but it's like, you could stick your money in these companies, get your return for so long until again music stops, and now your dollar's a piece of shit and nobody wants it. So gold is a store of value, hedging against the unlimited dollar printing. Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. Is the fix in? Are they just gonna kill it? I mean, I don't really know. I don't really see a path for the dollar to do anything like dramatic, and kind of clean itself up either. I mean, really, like, to me, this just like does not look good. You know, really, any way that you slice this. And I'm not even exactly sure if this hit 50% of the range or not, but we're still respecting bearish order flow. That is terrifying. So silver used in so many manufacturing products. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's a double, We have like a whole new industry with AI coming into play here, and obviously, precious metals like that typically would do well in a weak dollar environment too. So it's like almost like a double hit on some of these metals, you know. Inflation is only just getting started too, which is the super scary part. Um, I don't disagree with that. Again, I'm not an economist, but I don't disagree with that either. I'm just really not optimistic. Just seems like a rush to do a short term fix. Stocks are not more valuable, dollars are just worth less. Yeah, exactly. And I use this like basic stupid like analogy again, an economist might say, "Well, that's really stupid." But the way I look at it is like, if your dollar's fading, right? Your dollar's just not worth nearly as much. At least at the end of the day, if you have ownership in a company, which having shares would be, you know, the value of that, that you would anticipate that holding value would be the same type of ideas as holding on to, a commodity, or something of that nature. So, even if the dollar sucks, you still have something that is, quote unquote performing better, or allegedly. Um, so, and yeah, I mean, if the dollar were to tank, you would anticipate stocks going higher. That's true. Oh, sorry there. I think I missed a few comments. Daily fair value gap draw below, and confluence in names. Yeah, I think that's ultimately where we draw towards. I do. And that's going to be a pivot. I mean, look, again, we talk about all of this stuff with the dollar looking pretty weak. Um, we're going through essentially, the whole line of thought. And again, if you're looking at a continued weakness in the dollar, you would expect stocks to go up, right? But I'm not necessarily looking for anything drastic on stocks at the same time. You know, a little bit of a breather or retracement out of a higher time frame pivot, like a Showtime daily fair value gap, that would make sense to me, to at least retrace just a little bit at the very least. What do you think about the bearish candle that created Showtime no upper wick? Yeah, I saw, and I'm pretty sure we left it perfectly equal high. Yeah. See, this is the hard part about talking about stocks too, because as much as I do think a retracement would make a whole lot of sense, like I really don't think this is going to be a long drawn out thing at all. Like I'm trying to make that as clear as possible, you know? I could be wrong. We could melt this tomorrow and we keep going higher, right? Weak dollar, you got all the, justification in the world for this to continue. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I do think we're going to retrace a little bit and then from there keep the party rolling throughout the rest of the year or, few years, who knows? Maybe until dollar gets to $88 because that's where those relative equal lows are on it. So, but yeah, there is no upper wick. I saw that today here. I'll pull up exactly what you're saying here. I think I didn't draw a blue line. I put a volume imbalance because it is a volume imbalance. There was a little gap down there on the daily, and that was that no wick. So really, again, I personally lean for lower, but I got to be honest. There is a world where this can happen. Just to be fair, something like that. Just to be fair. But there's also a world where this happens. Yeah, we did miss it by a few earlier, right? And I think you had SMT at those highs again, right? Yeah. ES took another high. YM is weaker now. Uh, Russell. And then I look at a bunch of individual charts and I'm just like, I really don't like it. To me, it's just not favorable for a lot of these names to blow through bearish levels after not getting into discount or barely even getting into, some of them aren't even in like higher time frame objective levels. So, you know, I'll die on this take for a little bit at least. But let's see what else. Um, it is very rare, and I don't think we're necessarily done going up. I just think at least in the shorter term, I think today's movement with how you kind of aligned with some of those individual names in that after hours move, and even with those after hours rockets, we didn't really, you know, knock it out of the park. Really, we couldn't even get back up to high a day on Nasdaq. So, and that was with Meta was up 50 points at one point, Tesla was up quite a bit, and I know Microsoft got smoked, but um, let's see. I think at worst we get like 10% discount on indices. I'm in complete agree with you. I don't see less. Yeah, no, I really, honestly, I would be shocked at anything below the high of that quarterly imbalance. I think that would make sense. But I just to be fair, I think maybe a weak February and then get back to business as usual. I don't think it's going to be like that sharp because we really aren't as far off of discount as we were last April. Last April from this point, our closest imbalance was down at 16. You drop 6K on indices. This would be like 2, you know. Trump is going to keep printing highs in stock market by printing unlimited dollars, I guess. Yeah. Well, I think it's also it is worth noting this as well. I mean, just look from the lows of '09. Just look how long this was of just a steady grind. Like, um, we haven't had that. We with all that printing and all of that, it's definitely gotten more volatile as a byproduct. But to me, untouched premium bullish quarterly imbalance. Odds we go through that in one shot, I think, are extremely, extremely slim, especially with how dollar looks. But I think a little bit of a breather would make sense to early on in the year, get it out of the way, set us up for another push. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if a catalyst is right around the corner here, truly, from this point. You have Apple tomorrow. You know, Apple, I typed it up last night. I think Apple is a little bit more tricky than the rest of them. And let me explain to you guys why I think that is. Now, and just by me talking, this is just me talking out loud. I'm not going to be always 100% right. This is just my thought process, at least with this stuff. You know, take it for what it is. And I don't mean to be a preacher by any means, but I'm just, again, just explaining my thought process here. That's all. But with Apple, here's why it's a little tricky to me. It's because we hit discount on the monthly and we got into a monthly imbalance. On top of that, you hit discount and you also hit a quarterly imbalance. Now it's not quite discounted. I understand that, and that, would be something that I would be interested in, of course. But it's hard to say I want another low on this when I do. Like I just to be fair, I do. Now I think you could justify it from a weekly, right? You wicked into that weekly bearish fair value gap here. You tag it, and you've retraced thus far. Um, and it was also discounted from a weekly perspective. Another low in the grand scheme of things does nothing to blow up your monthly, and it does nothing to blow up your quarterly. That's why I think it's a possibility, and that's why I actually favor it. Again, I could be wrong because it already has tapped discount. It's already tapped a bullish level. But it doesn't blow up anything if we go back down and see that low again. And that's where I'm at. That would also set up for, again, I used AMD as an example of this earlier today, where you have that low, high, lower low, and that is essentially what's setting you up for a breaker in the future. I'll show you what I mean by that. A little different on AMD. AMD was way deeper in discount than what Apple was, but essentially, like this type of move for one more low, doesn't blow up the setup, sets the breaker, and then it goes, and I think that is probably what I would favor the most. And even if that means it's got to push until next week when the monthly candle shifts. So basically what would happen would be maybe you finish somewhere in this vicinity to close out this month. You push the next month lower to start, and then you start to make progress. That's also a possibility. So anything more than a 30% drawdown in indices would be apocalyptic. Yeah. Yeah. Not inside this range. I mean, the range 30%. We want 50%. That would be the most ideal situation for us as outsiders trying to buy something, right? But overall, yes. 30% of 26K. That's putting a lot of people out of business. And I would. I don't even know. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But it would be scary if Nasdaq doesn't form a yearly fair value gap. I will say that. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. Not in the state that we're currently in with how these big tech companies basically run the country. It feels like they're just stringing the market. Oh yeah, we read that. A couple cents missed it. I think that was for the high, that daily high. Um, there's another quarterly bullish imbalance at 94.62 on DXY. Yeah, I think it's just when you expand it and you just see the respect for bearish order flow. You really wouldn't want to just completely disregard bullish levels like we have thus far. I'm sure they can fabricate an event. It's more predictable that it's not rigged for a real unexpected event to happen to trigger algos. Well, I mean, like geopolitically, I think Iran is closer than many would think, and I don't even think that's the last on the list. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these other countries also. Cuba. I know it's probably not as impactful, but Iran's like a major country. It's massive. Maybe not by our standards, but just generally, I think that would be pretty bad. That's a good excuse. 24K. Uh, yeah, that would put you in that quarterly. Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, I might be getting ahead of myself. But I'm just trying to lay out like you know, my thought process really. The government's also potentially shutting down at what on Friday. Um, so that's another good excuse. Um, Nobody's talking about the Japanese, currency anymore. That one, they forgot about that one. Um, Tap quarterly and move. Yeah, again, I don't want to, use my analysis as a what's it called? Just use that as an opinion, like you're reading, in a newspaper, somebody's thought process. That's all. Make sure it's in alignment with what you have. You might look at it differently than me. You might not think that we get another quarterly retracement here, and I think you would be fair in thinking that, just truthfully, because I think there is a world where you bounce out of this daily bullish imbalance and daily breaker. It just doesn't really line up with Bitcoin either, and dollars weak. I don't know. That's why I don't really favor that.
Even like I don't. We've been trading so strangely. Like even right now, Nasdaq is currently trying to inverse a 15-minute bearish. We literally bounced out of a 5-minute order block and the 1-minute fair value gap inside the, I guess, hourly breaker. You did create that. But we're just trading, like, that's not the place to bounce from, in my opinion, right? It's like you should bounce out of one of the fair value gaps that we created, not inverse those to then inverse the bearish. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, sloppy overnight trading. I don't really look too much overnight for that reason. Yeah, but I agree.
Yeah, but it's been
I mean,
doing that like throughout the day too. It's like just trading so retarded.
yeah, I mean, I see this left behind too. These relative equal highs and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you would
You think
expect,
we
okay,
made?
if you don't have
Oh, go
enough
ahead.
liquidity, you would expect for us to go and take today's low at least, maybe ES take it or NASDAQ, one of them at least, and then from there, if you want to go and take the relative equal highs, like by all means, but
Yeah, I don't really see any of them that look too good. I mean, I guess you can make the case for Dow, but even Dow, I don't think really looks great. I just see a volume imbalance on Dow here. That's it.
yeah, yeah,
But
that
yeah,
looks like
I'm not really
it.
interested in the low vol movement in that overnight. You think we make one more high on the monthly Bitcoin in February to get bearish discount on the monthly? Uh,
Like,
I don't think we're gonna make another high on Bitcoin. I don't. Um, I mean, I guess technically you can. There's no bearish fair value gap forming out of the rejection here. I don't really favor that either, but it's a possibility. I mean, I don't think you can rule it out completely. If we formed a bearish fair value gap here, I would say I would not bet on that, but we didn't. So I don't know. I think Bitcoin's gotta go down too. Yep, government shutdown this weekend, right? Um, you don't think it's gonna happen? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just an excuse, I guess. Um, Midterm elections this year. There's a lot of chest pounding right now. Yeah, there's a lot of like those, and like that's the thing. Like you think of all the events that could potentially happen that should have one type of move, and then you get the other. Like I don't know, that type of speculation to me is just really hard to justify, right? You would expect for the people in charge right now to do everything in their power to make sure that going into those midterm elections, stock market's at all-time highs, right? We talked about this last year with the or 2 years ago with the election, where it's like, you know, you had all time highs at that point, and you're not using that. Like, she didn't talk about that at all. I guess that's because it's against their game plan for the big companies to be big and everything. But like, if anything, out of those 4 years that you wanted to like make a big deal about, that would be something to make a big deal about. As you and I both know, that it really doesn't matter who the president is, but you know, like you can at least use that as an excuse. You don't think Trump is like, going to do everything in his power to make sure that the market is booming into midterms. I find that really hard to believe. The shutdown stuff only really plays well if the bill you're targeting actually funds the people you want to defund. Shutdown won't happen, too political. Yeah, it's just something that's kind of floundering out there that could just be used as an excuse. I think that's why it was brought up anyway. Still have a minefield of news for the rest of the week. Yeah, unemployment, earnings, PPI. There's a lot packed into this back half. Well, that's another thing there. Again, like, I think so. Here's my opinion on Bitcoin in general. Because while I agree with you, again, I think, it's a, digital store of value, digital gold. It's a place to hold value and all of that. At the same time, are we still looking at this as a bit of speculative growth? Think back over the last 4 years. How has it moved in relation to NASDAQ? It's essentially been the same, right? A lot of very similarly to a lot of these tech names. So it's like, it's kind of like how I was talking about, like, these metals being like a double hit almost. It's like the same type of idea. Like, you would expect, if the dollar is weak, that any store of value, something that can hold value, would be of interest. While at the same time, if you're looking at Bitcoin as more of a technology, does that get hit a little bit for retracement, just like a lot of these tech names I think should. I mean, again, like, I like talking about this stuff. It's fun, it's speculative, and all of that, but like, I don't know if I can really like base decisions off of it. That's my takeaway. So that's the thing. And it's odd too, because you think about all the miners, and even like some of the Bitcoin names as well. Like, when Bitcoin made that most recent all-time high, really didn't get much love out of the miners. Didn't really get much love out of, MSTR or Coinbase. And you would think these companies that have accumulated all of this Bitcoin over time, you would expect them to all go to highs, right? That's what everybody's thinking, right? But it wasn't the case. Like, so that's why, another reason why I just don't think speculation and just like, if then, all right, well, if Bitcoin makes a high, then so will MSTR, so will Coinbase, so will Mara, so will, uh, you know, CLSK, so will Riot, all of those. Like, you would think that would be the case, but it wasn't. And this happens way too frequently for me to feel as though like that is something that's a viable strategy to use. Or, it goes the same way. It's like, oh, everybody uses Amazon stock should be $1 zillion, and it's just like, yeah, but like, it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? Like, so like that's the thing about, like, as much as I do like talking about this, I like talking about it more so just to kind of, you know all right, what's the excuse going to be? Like, that's the way I look at it, almost, versus like, okay, because we're doing this, it's going to do this. Now, the whole like liquidity thing, like, that that may be something that like will immediately impact things, right? Think about it. If they print zillions of dollars, and that money is, where's that money going? Going into a weak dollar? Doubt it, right? It's probably going to go into assets. That, and then like, that's that external liquidity coming from outside the marketplace that that probably will have some influence over, price. So, like, that's the thing. And at this point, really, I don't know if we've necessarily had that other than COVID. And COVID, you almost had a double, where it was, we were discounted, we were inside of a bullish imbalance, we turtle soup swept liquidity from 2000, I think it was 2018 or 2019, and then we just took off, and we took off at a rate that we hadn't. I don't know if we've ever seen the speed of that move ever. Right? Just go back to COVID. I mean, like this, and how quickly this not only recovered but just shattered all-time highs. This is something we've never ever seen before. So like that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, we know we printed a ton of money here. Like maybe that influenced the speed in which it went to where it was already going, you know? Because if you gave me a blank chart here and you saw swept relative equal lows, got into a bullish imbalance, yeah, we're running through highs, made a model complete, right? But like I can't dictate this type of speed that happened, you know? So who knows? If the money printer gets fired up again, maybe it's a completely different story. Maybe we just take off. I don't know. I don't get day-to-day reports on if how much money was printed or what, but then you just go back to that same problem. Inflation's going to be a total bitch, and it's not going to go away. So I can look at that one. Let me just read the rest of these chats. Um, I thought if the dollar sank, Bitcoin would rise, and it would be a segue into normalizing Bitcoin into everyday purchases. I mean, you think about dollar at 88. I think at that point they're probably looking into some sort of government crypto. Maybe Trump coin gets a second run, second pump and
If
dump.
we end up having Trump coin as the official U.S.
It'll
coin,
never happen.
I will probably leave the U.S.
It'll never happen. It'll never happen. Literally, they're like, all right, you could change the Kennedy thing, the Kennedy honors, to make it Trump Kennedy Center. You could put yourself on a $250 bill or whatever he's trying to do, but like,
Making Trump coin.
your name ain't gonna be the money. There's no way that's gonna happen.
That I'd
Yeah,
literally be like, all right, like you guys could have your citizenship. I'm going back to the DR. Fuck this.
yeah, no, I mean, and it's dude, the craziest part about this is, and like, you know how much money he made off of that Trump coin,
I'm calling Scott
and
Bessent
even
right now, trading
That,
stocks. It'll
from
be done
that
by
point
tomorrow
on, I
morning.
knew Trump wasn't serious and he was here to pretty much fuck us. But
he pumped every bag, bro. That thing is crazy. And also, I've been seeing this come up a lot more and more. This whole poly market thing, it's kind of crazy because they're placing bets on some stuff. I saw one where it was that the White House press secretary, like I guess it was the over under was like I don't know, let's just say 3 minutes, whatever the over under was. Literally, she got 10 minutes to the end and she was like, "Okay, thank you very much." Like she abruptly stopped. "Thank you very much. That's going to be it for today. No more questions." Boom, walked off. And it was like almost in the middle of a sentence. She just cut it, boom, out.
somebody placed a bet that it
Like
was going to be less than X amount. I saw that too on X. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
some
Like, and
crazy
I
shit.
saw that one.
Yeah,
I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." Because she dead stop, boom, out. Like, you know, it's just crazy. So it's like, how much of this stuff is actually going on? Um,
I mean, I could bet you that's definitely somebody on the inside who told her and cut her a check for it. But other than that, I don't know who it is.
it might not be just her. It might be all of them. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah, we're
oh
cooked.
wait, oh go ahead.
We're cooked. There's no other way to put it.
I know. It's just it's like so sad. Really, it's such high hopes for this, and it turned out pretty bad so far. Um, Bitcoin ATMs. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bitcoin's going anywhere. Like, I made sure I put that in my tweet. I think it's gonna go lower, but I, I don't think Bitcoin is going anywhere. Just to be fair, and I saw something today about more litigation on crypto and everything like that. So, yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's only going to become more prominent. Maybe not Bitcoin per se. Maybe there are others that maybe the government. I wouldn't say creates, but like I don't know, maybe they adopt some others, who knows? But price action on charts is the only truth. Everything we say is only to rationalize the price action in hindsight. True. Yes, true. There's always a stock's down today because of this. It's just like, was it really because of that? Or, you know, like, did we just get into a higher time frame bearish level and reject from there? You have to be patient to hold Bitcoin. It ain't easy, but nothing worth having is. That's every stock. That's everything. Yeah. XRP maybe. I don't know. I think the XRP it does increase in the supply. Is that true? I don't know, but maybe. Imagine of thinking instead of thinking of Bitcoin only used for everyday purchases, think of it as digital capital. It's collateral. Yeah, I don't think Bitcoin's gonna get to a point where it's the everyday dollar or something. I don't know. They seem pretty hot on these like stable coins. So yeah, Trump shitcoin. Trump coin not needs to be a clean name, a one-word syllable based on that thought. I used to think Doge was going to be the. Yeah, I don't know about Doge either, because even the Doge that they tried to do, it didn't do anything. Send Bitcoin to zero when Satoshi is actually yes. Imagine that would be crazy. Money supply trading view ticker is USM2. Nice. The betting on events is yeah, I don't like it. Is there a way I can bet on Mando stream? Yeah, bet the under. Definitely bet the under. You're printing money chart. Oh, okay. That's funny. That is funny. So we haven't printed money in a while, and we're in discount. Okay. It's coming. It's coming. Mando model will complete at $8.94 trillion. Oh yeah, all in over our stream, definitely. I would okay, definitely over that. I thought you meant like viewers. I'd say under, but I live on the Jersey Shore. Never seen a Bitcoin ATM, but seen one gas station in Toledo. Wow, I'm surprised. I feel like they would try and be hip and put one on the boardwalk or something. Stable coins. Yeah, they keep talking about them. I don't care for them, but it's got to be hard as shit to be a writer on CNBC. How the hell do they do the shows every day? Boggles my mind. Here's how: they get a script and they just repeat what they're told to say. That's literally it. It's like okay, all right, we need to drop this stock so that our guys can load this. So talk shit about it. Here's the things that you should talk poorly about. Nah, I feel like obviously you need like serious production and everything like that. I'm positive myself, maybe we get a few other you guys plug in on some hourly segments. I'm sure we can have a much more informative and actually beneficial show than what they do. Because I mean, I could talk about this all day long, whatever, wherever it goes. I mean, I got no problem doing that. It's just, you gotta find a way to be engaging and, obviously, you kind
Problem
of
is
have
then
to
if we
make
went on,
big
retail would
claims.
actually make money, and I think they have no interest in that.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think a lot. I think if people did it for a while, I think they would. But I still think there's so many people, man. Like I posted this thing yesterday talking about a pivot. And listen, people were like just crediting me so much. Oh my god, it hit the high and then it retraced out of that Showtime imbalance. Holy shit. Yo, you're missing the point. You are totally missing the point. This is the pivot where something is going to happen, okay? It's not yet. I'm not taking any credit for anything. I think it's going to go down, but here's the thing. Inside that level tells me nothing. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Hands off inside that level. Completely hands off. The reaction to that level is the edge, not getting into that level. Getting to that level, okay, we have the edge getting there, sure. But inside that specific level, there is no edge because I can lay out right now for you a perfectly good bullish thesis, which I basically did with that daily breaker and bullish fair value gap. Now, I don't think that's going to stick and hold, but you can justify that completely. You can make a strong case that that's what's going to happen. I don't favor that. I think there's way too many lows below. I see that quarterly imbalance sticking out. I think that would be a really nice place to manipulate to, ultimately satisfy that liquidity and drive price higher for the rest of the year. That's my take. So that is the thing. So these, I had 3 people today Oh my God, that's so amazing, bro. You're a legend for this. Dude, you just missed the whole point. Thanks for saying all of that, but you're not understanding this. You don't get it. This might be a little too advanced for you, you know? So that's why I think a lot of people will still suck ass, even if we were talking about this all day. You could sit in here all day. I mean, if you don't like really understand it, it's just you're wasting your time. I don't know. I don't know if it would really, because I'm listen. As many people have been doing well in here, have had success. I am sure there's people who have been in here and they just don't trade anymore. And I think that's just because they don't really go that extra mile that you need to go to be good at this. I mean, honestly, like, and I don't think it's like a being smart or stupid thing either. Honestly, I don't think that's the case at all. I think you just really have to be driven by this. You actually have to like and be interested in this stuff. Now, I never thought I would be, but turns out I am. But I think some people they just don't get like they won't get it. They don't understand. Like I can tell you all this stuff. We can go day by day. We can do these breakdowns and say, all right, I think price is going here. Here's why. We can do all of that, and then at the end of the day, when it's time, they can't execute on that because they did none of the background work to establish some sort of foundation at all. And then if you don't do that, then you're cooked. I mean, I can't really help you, to be honest. I can point you in the right direction. I can show you the stuff that's worked for me. I can't help you beyond that. You really need to you know, try and understand it for yourself, you know. I said it before, if everybody's on the right side of the trade, then we don't really have a market anymore. I mean, it's true, but again, at the same time, the market's been like this for how long? ICT's been teaching this stuff since 2009. I mean, how many thousands and thousands and thousands of people have probably gone through his content? He's got millions of followers, across multiple platforms, and still it's never caught on. It's never changed. I don't think it's ever going to. I don't see why it would. Oil complete. Beautiful. Nice. Oh, that's really nice. Yeah. Another one. Oh, okay. All right, Snaz. Yeah. So I don't know if you were here last night, but Sparky brought this up. All right, it's time. We can finally do it. I said I can't do this victory lap until it fully completes because, Mara and everything. But yep, we have a victory lap on this one. So many of you, I really haven't talked about it much, just to be fair, but I'll do this victory lap for you guys. So you. I know many of you guys brought it up. Snaz has been talking about this for quite some time. Um, Jose, if you're here, Jose remembers this one. We talked about this on the initial price run, uh, really a long time ago. I wonder if I still have that alert here because it says ping Jose because we did it on a one-on-one session. Yeah, there it is. So this is from April 3rd of 2025. We set it for 353, and then you could obviously see the reaction from that point. Just absolute rocket. Discount to bullish and balance run through highs. And now you have your second. So this is back-to-back Mando model completions. Awesome job to everybody who's stuck on this name, had the conviction to hold through. And I believe you are at all-time highs, yeah? Nope, not quite. I don't know if there's any splits in here. Doubt it, but very good progress already. So congrats to everybody who was on that. Yeah, that was incredible. Totally incredible. Now you just need a couple more leggers and you're really talking. From $3 to now, you're pushing. You're like 900%. Right? I think mental math maybe. It's late. Um,
Yeah,
motivated is an
3 to 27
understatement
is
for me.
900%. Yeah.
Beauty. Yeah, that's amazing. Motivated is an understatement for me. I don't want to have to work if I can make great money from home via the market. Best thing I think, or this is not financial advice, but I'll give the advice to myself. The best thing was to make sure that regardless, I could take as much pressure off myself as possible trying to do this, and that's when you start to see the biggest reward, I think. I think that's the best way to look at it. If you got to go to work for a little bit, make your money, make sure that you can learn how to do this in a less stressful environment. Think about it. If you're relying on this totally and you're still learning how to do it, you know how stressful that's going to be for you. You know, it's a really tough position to be in. So, you know, do what you got to do. I mean, I know a lot of people work hard and everything like that. I get it, but some of you guys got some cushy ass sitting at desk job. I know it sucks, but I mean, you know, can you sit there? Can you look at the computer? Can you know, continue to work on this skill, you know, while you're doing all of that, you know?
Mando, quick question. So they love closing right at the high or low that would make a breaker. Is that a breaker or not? They do that constantly, and I'm like, huh.
Where is it?
So they love closing at a high or a low that would create a breaker. Like the candle actually closes exactly at that point, at least on indices. I haven't really seen it in stocks, to be fair, but I'm
Oh, they
sure it
close it right on the high.
Yeah, like was that a breaker
Yeah.
or not? Like
I'd like to close above.
I just okay, fair enough. No, like
Maybe that's
I just
something
saw
worth
it
like
now happen on Nasdaq. Like Nasdaq closed that 5 minute high exactly where that prior high was. And I mean there is another breaker, but I saw this and I'm like, oh shit, I've been meaning to ask that, but I forgot.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I like the break above. Makes me feel a little bit more comfortable with it. You could go down to smaller time frames and see maybe if that fits the narrative, but you could also just track it. So the next couple that you see what the reaction is. If it's a direct close on that liquidity, if that warrants it. I guess you would think that closing on that liquidity would be good enough to consider that a breaker. I think breaking above is just so back testable. It's so easy to prove that that's something that works. I think that's why
Yeah, it makes me feel a
I
lot
say
more
it that way.
comfortable anytime we actually close, even if it's a tick above, other than like I have noticed that they do typically end up working out whenever they close right on it, but I
Right.
kind of don't like it. I was just wondering if you actually like if there was, if ICT ever talked about that and you heard or something. I don't know.
No, I don't know. He's I like as good as the stuff that he does. Like I don't know if it's really that specific, but you know,
Okay.
like on a lot of stuff, I don't think he's as specific with it. You know, like that's the whole thing. Like with my model in itself, like if you look up like if you go to his optimal trade entry, like that's literally a major portion of the Mando model. It's just the optimal trade
I
entry. It's
know.
called,
Yeah.
and that's like discounting imbalances. But the problem, like what I found with that was because I did do it and I did okay for a while on it, but like there would be times it didn't work, and I'm just like, why would this not work? This is the optimal trade entry. But then you realize like, okay, this really needs higher time frame context. And then like now you pair that and now you have my model. It's like, all right, we're putting an emphasis on this higher time frame because if you have a clear cut draw on the higher time frame, everything that's happening on the smaller time frame, it just you're not only going to feel much more confident, but probably going to do much better. But yeah, this knack, this is one that was just brought up by D Capital. This looks like it's going to 298. Let's see if there's any splits or anything like that. I don't think so. Yeah, this one looks pretty good. Yeah. I mean, 298, and then you got relative equal highs at 345. This one looks good. I remember this one from years ago. This was from like 2020. Yeah, I remember this around the 2020 because there was this one, and there was also this isn't a ticker anymore, but NAKD naked. I had that one at like 9 cents, and it went to like $9. That was crazy.
That was with the GME things. I remember that ticker.
Yeah, NAKD was one of those. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Went with like
That was
GBBY
so
and all
insane.
that.
Yeah, there was just so many back then. There's just like these little shitty names that got smoked, and then again, influx in liquidity, and we were just going on a tear. We were blowing out everything, and even these shitty names were catching some bids. It was nuts. That was that. That's never gonna happen again. I don't think we'll never have a time like that.
Unless you have another like event like COVID where, they print a fuck ton of money, I don't think you will.
If they print like what was it? I think it was like three
It was
quarters of the
it
money
was
supply in one
50% of
year.
the money supply that's in
Yeah. So I mean,
circulation was
maybe if they
printed
do
that
that
year.
again,
Yeah,
but
maybe you
dude,
do
like
that.
that was just,
Yeah,
and
we'd be
maybe
so
so it
fucked.
would have to be like crazy event, rapid discount retracement, ton of money printed, and then just like that time was just so insane. Like it was so insane. Like if you just had to be there. You don't get no one will get it unless you were there. Like you could look at
I
the
was
charts,
naive enough
you could
to
see it.
not buy stocks at that time. I didn't really know about it. I was scared, like I didn't know anything about it, so I didn't buy anything. Shame on me.
Dude, I really don't even have words for that period of time, dude. It was so crazy. Like anyone could post a stock, and it was just within within a couple of weeks. I'm not even saying pumping it, but they would bring it up, and that stock would just go berserk. Like the list is just so crazy throughout that time, and the one that I did the best on, nobody even knows about it. It's not even a company anymore. It got bought out by um I don't know if it was MGM or something like that, but it was a casino, El Dorado Casino Resorts. That was my best one, but there were so many. These SPACs would come out. These were, I forget what the acronym is, like special uh, acquisition companies or something like that. They had a floor price of 10. CCIV, which became Lucid. I'm like parking money on CCIV at $10. This thing went up to $70. XL Fleet was another one. Everybody's talking about all these EV like commercial vans. The company's probably off the stock exchange now. Probably got delisted. That thing went from like $10 to freaking 30 or $33 or something like that. SNDL Sundial, that was crazy. I only hit Sundial once. There was a couple of IPOC, IPOB, IPOA, which were Chamaths. A few of those did well, a few of them not so well. Like there was just so many dumb names, and obviously GME, AMC. And then you just look at big tech. I wasn't even trading big tech really back then because it was expensive for the shares. I didn't really trade options either, dude. Just like total NAKD, another one like um, it was just so stupid. It was so stupid. Literally just everything was just gone. Like there was no like, and I think there was just a lot of like novice people also, so it was just like buy it and just like talk about it on Twitter, and like dude, they just went crazy. At that time I was getting like 500 followers a day in the beginning, getting 100 towards the middle, and then now it's like you got to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get like a
Three
thousand views
followers.
on your tweet when you have fucking 40,000 people following you. It's crazy. Yeah,
Those were the days. It seems to be. Jimmy, stop.
dude, it was so crazy. I would literally at this point, I gotta be honest, if I just started my group like when I shouldn't have, when I was a retard, like I would have just made so much money. Like that's why I don't want to. It's just like such a different time. Like I could have just been a scumbag fucker like all these other people are, and just like, oh yeah, I'm starting a group. There were just people asking me about everything, and at this time, like, you know, I like gave analysis, but it was just not as good. It was just as simple as everything's going higher. It was just dude, that time it was like so insane. I think off the top of my head, SMR needs to prevent a monthly fair value gap from forming, or it already formed it. Yeah. It's decent. I mean, breaker, bullish imbalance held on, but Let's see. Speaking of ICT, I'm sure it's been asked, why does he reference February 10th? I honestly have no idea. I think he just maybe through time and him like uh, you know, seeing how market delivers in December and January. And he's been right. I mean, December and January sucked, right? So, working the real job is necessary. Absolutely. I have the same discussion with my dad. Got to keep working while doing this. Fortunately, being self-employed, I can do both. Dude, totally. I mean, it's just a different mindset. You treat this like a business, and you know, it's a lifelong skill if you can acquire it, right? It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to change. It hasn't since the beginning of times. We can go back and we can backtest the same stuff we talk about now in 1980s, 1970s. It's like, you know, but it's I think a problem for a lot of people is trying to acquire it like or try and act on it too quickly, and then you just take unnecessary bumps and bruises, you know. Like, and that's the thing. Like I said, I came in, it was like you're playing, campaign Call of Duty on easy. And I don't say that lightly either, because I know this is hard no matter what. But like at that time, like there was no doubt in my mind that anything that I bought wasn't going higher. Like that's what that was like the whole time. It was crazy. And then you started seeing like names that were not really moving, like AMC, GME, and then you see them move like that, and it was like, holy crap. But that kind of bookmarked or bookended that period of like insanity. Like once that happened, like it was almost like, all right, big money is coming in. They're saying fuck you, you ain't doing this shit no more. And then they cut it, and then like I really had to learn. But thankfully I had a bit of a cushion. Now I could I could fuck up and it wouldn't kill me or anything. But it really set me up at least. Lunar, yeah, Lunar really nice too. Yeah, Lunar's a bit tricky because if you prevent that quarterly, that would essentially fill that monthly, right? Or come close to it at least.